Commissioner Gordon, Bane has escaped.
There comes a time when disappearing is not running away, it's returning to focus. The world has turned visibility into a drug, and most people are addicted. They crave being seen more than being developed. But silence is where real growth happens. The moment you withdraw from the constant exhibition, you reclaim energy that was leaking through the cracks of validation. When no one knows your next move, you move with precision. When no one watches, you act for purpose, not applause. Disappearing means exiting the circus of opinions to build something that doesn't require defense. The shadows become your workshop. Every hour away from noise adds depth. Every day unseen adds layers to the person you are becoming. The absence of an audience is not emptiness, it's incubation. The one who vanishes willingly creates leverage that visibility cannot provide. Attention is a currency that loses value when overused. Solitude, however, compounds silently. When you detach from the constant conversation of the world, your rhythm returns. You begin to hear the pulse of your own mind again. You start thinking instead of reacting, creating instead of competing. The average person lives on input, drowning in what everyone else is doing. You, on the other hand, learn to feed on output, on what you produce, what you refine, what you strengthen. Disappearing is not about rejection of others, it's about reorientation of self. You step away so that when you return, your presence carries the weight of mastery, not noise. Consistency becomes the backbone of everything you build in silence. It's the invisible work that compounds long after motivation fades. While others chase bursts of effort, you build systems that move even when you don't feel like it. Consistency transforms identity. Repetition rewires the nervous system. Each act of discipline becomes a vote for the person you are becoming. There's no applause, no milestone, no performance. Just you, the work, and the endless refinement of your craft. That grind in solitude separates those who play at self-improvement from those who embody it. The quiet worker will always outlast the loud dreamer. Over time, consistency becomes your armor. It shields you from chaos because rhythm removes hesitation. The world glamorizes transformation but hides the process. The truth is that becoming great is rarely cinematic. It's monotonous, silent, and invisible to everyone but you. The same routine, the same focus, the same repeated sacrifice day after day until excellence becomes reflex. People quit because they mistake boredom for failure, never realizing that repetition is the rhythm of mastery. Every great life looks dull from the outside. It's built on invisible effort that compounds in silence until one day, the results are too loud to ignore. When you stay consistent, you no longer chase growth. It becomes your default setting. Disappearing also protects you from contamination. The more eyes you invite into your process, the more noise infects it. Every opinion becomes a virus that weakens conviction. When you vanish, you build immunity. You begin to work for internal validation, not external reaction. That shift is dangerous. It turns you into someone who moves without needing encouragement. The person who depends on applause will always crumble in silence, but the one who thrives in isolation becomes unstoppable when the world finally pays attention. Disappearance is not hiding, it's strategy. It's building strength in private so that exposure cannot shake you later. Your energy is finite. Every conversation, every argument, every distraction spends it. That's why the disciplined disappear. They know their energy is sacred. They guard it like warriors guard their weapons. They don't waste it proving, they use it building. Each day of quiet work is a deposit into the future. Each act of restraint is an act of dominance over chaos. You begin to feel power not through display, but through direction. You stop seeking recognition and start seeking results. Power becomes the byproduct of control, not the pursuit of it. That shift only happens when you step away long enough to see how often the world trades noise for progress. The hardest part of disappearing is facing the silence. When you remove the noise, you hear everything you've avoided. The doubts, the fears, the insecurities. But staying consistent through that noise is where transformation happens. You learn that discipline is not the absence of emotion, it's movement despite emotion. You show up even when belief flickers. You persist even when motivation dies. That is where greatness forms, in the repetition of effort when no one is watching. Consistency in silence breeds confidence in storms. The person who keeps moving without witnesses becomes the kind who doesn't need any. Building your greatest version requires losing your old one. The habits, the identities, the patterns that served you before must die. That is the pain of evolution. You cannot take the old you into the new level. The person you were built comfort. The person you are becoming builds legacy, and legacy demands sacrifice. You will have to disappear not just from others, but from your former self. That detachment feels like isolation at first, but it's liberation in disguise. You stop defending your old limitations. You stop identifying with your old story. You start constructing from zero, brick by silent brick, until the version of you that returns is unrecognizable. There's a rhythm to greatness that few can hear. It plays quietly in the hours before dawn and after everyone else has given up for the night. It hums in every repetition, every refinement, every act of restraint. When you commit to that rhythm, time begins to bend in your favor. What looks like slow progress to others becomes exponential over years. Consistency turns time into an ally. Disappearance turns patience into power. You no longer chase opportunities. They orbit you, drawn to the gravitational pull of someone who never stopped when no one was clapping. 4 hours, that's all it takes. 4 hours of deliberate, focused effort every single day. No interruptions, no distractions, no shortcuts. Over the course of a year, that equals 1 for 60 hours. Stack 2 years like that, and you have created the equivalent of an extra full year of work. Most people will never realize how much power hides in that math. They waste entire lifetimes in half focus, spreading their energy thin across meaningless motions. But when you disappear into focus, time bends in your favor. 4 concentrated hours can do more than 12 scattered ones. Focus multiplies output, not effort. Those who learn to disappear into the discipline of hours build lives that others call luck. They simply learn to aim where everyone else drifts. Consistency is the secret that rewrites timelines. You cannot see it day by day. It's invisible progress, almost deceptive in how quiet it feels. But the compounding effect of daily focus transforms everything. 1 day of discipline feels small, 1 year of it feels divine. Every single day of sustained effort plants a seed, and while the world is busy checking for results, you are stacking invisible victories. Over time, those small hours accumulate into an advantage that can't be replicated. You don't need talent when you have time aligned with consistency. Talent flashes, discipline compounds. Consistency is the one force that levels every field. The numbers never lie. 4 focused hours a day is a simple equation, but few ever solve it. The discipline required to repeat it every day is where most fail. They think success requires massive effort, yet it demands precision more than power. The mind that can concentrate deeply for sustained hours controls outcomes that scattered minds never reach. This is the math of mastery, the ability to sustain directed effort long after motivation fades. Every focused hour is a vote for your future. Every day you repeat it, you widen the gap between who you were and who you are becoming. Time becomes your ally because consistency converts it into momentum. The illusion of business destroys progress. Most people work for appearance, not advancement. They confuse activity with achievement. They scatter their attention across endless tasks and wonder why nothing compounds. But the mind that learns to isolate, to channel, to go deep without noise, that mind becomes dangerous. 4 hours of pure intent every day carves through the noise of mediocrity. While others burn energy trying to do everything, you quietly do what matters. Over time, that difference grows into domination. The person who focuses becomes a force, not because they worked harder, but because they worked without friction. To disappear into focus is to vanish from the chaos of shallow effort. It's to understand that the brain has a limited window of brilliance each day, and to dedicate it to something that matters. You don't need to grind endlessly. You need to guard your hours like a sacred ritual. Those hours build the foundation of everything great. They separate the distracted from the disciplined. The average person trades their focus for comfort and ends up living years that feel identical. The rare few who harness it compress decades into a handful of years. Consistency doesn't just create results, it warps time itself. Talent deceives people into waiting for inspiration. Discipline ignores inspiration and creates momentum. That's why consistency will always outpace talent. A genius who works sporadically will always lose to a grinder who never stops. The world remembers the persistent, not the gifted. Each day you show up, you're proving to yourself that greatness is not random. It's earned in predictable increments. The myth of natural ability dies in the presence of sustained effort. What you build in 460 focused hours cannot be undone by luck or competition. Consistency doesn't promise speed, it promises certainty. Every minute spent in deep work refines your mind. The repetition sharpens intuition, pattern recognition, and execution. You stop guessing and start knowing. Each session adds precision to your craft. Over time, that precision compounds into mastery. You don't see it happening, but one day you wake up realizing that you've surpassed people who once intimidated you. The secret was never extraordinary talent. It was extraordinary focus. The daily habit of disappearing into your work rewires you into someone who moves differently. You become quieter, sharper, more deliberate. You stop chasing opportunity because you've become one. The world glorifies results but rarely studies rhythm. Behind every great life is a simple, boring pattern repeated thousands of times. That's what 4 hours of daily focus looks like. It's not glamorous. It's repetition disguised as evolution. It's the quiet decision to show up every day and give your best energy to something that no one may notice for years. But the universe bends to that kind of devotion. Consistency creates compound interest in every domain: skills, health, wealth, purpose. It rewards the patient and punishes the scattered. You don't need to sprint, you need to endure. Disappearing into focused work is rebellion against distraction. Every notification you ignore, every hour you protect, every task you finish with intention is an act of defiance against mediocrity. You are reclaiming control over the most valuable resource: attention. Attention is life. Where it goes, your destiny follows. When you focus deeply, you're shaping not just results but identity. You become the kind of person who doesn't need external push. You become self-propelled. And once you reach that level of autonomy, consistency becomes natural. It's simply who you are. The brain is an instrument of staggering precision, but it operates on a narrow bandwidth, around 56 bits of conscious processing per second. That means you can hold only a handful of thoughts with clarity before the system starts to blur. Every piece of content you consume, every swipe and scroll, devours a portion of that limited capacity. Attention is not infinite, it is currency. The tragedy is that most people spend it like pocket change. They give away half of their awareness before they've even begun to think. Every notification, every headline, every meaningless post quietly drains power from the engine that was designed to create, not consume. The modern world thrives on that exchange. Your clarity for their profit. Guarding that bandwidth is rebellion. Protecting it is evolution. Once you understand how small the window of true awareness is, you begin to treat it like oxygen instead of entertainment. Imagine the human mind as a finely tuned lens. Every distraction smudges the glass until the image becomes distorted. You cannot build a clear life through a blurry mind. When you scroll endlessly, you are not relaxing. You are fragmenting attention into shards too scattered to assemble coherence. Each second of stimulation consumes the very energy needed for original thought. The brain pays a cost for switching focus, and that cost compounds. You think you are catching up on the world, but the world is quietly catching up on you. The price of consumption is the death of depth. Guard your bandwidth the way warriors guard their breath in battle. You do not need more input. You need more silence to think clearly. Scrolling feels harmless because it is invisible theft. It doesn't scream as it takes, it seeps. One swipe at a time, it erodes attention until you cannot focus for longer than a few moments without craving another hit of novelty. The dopamine loop replaces deliberate thought with reactive behavior. The mind becomes addicted to immediacy, incapable of delay. This is how brilliance dies, not in catastrophe, but in gradual distraction. You lose not through failure, but through diffusion. Every bit of your bandwidth, hijacked by noise, is a thought you will never recover. The only people who think deeply anymore are those who defend their attention as if their future depends on it. Because it does. Guarding bandwidth means reprogramming your relationship with stimulation. It's not about cutting off technology, it's about control. You decide what enters, what stays, and what never gets access. The modern brain needs boundaries more than motivation. Without them, the constant flood of trivial data drowns higher reasoning. Creativity requires emptiness to operate. Logic requires focus to form. When the mind is overcrowded, it malfunctions. You start reacting to everything and understanding nothing. Guarding bandwidth means giving the brain space to breathe again. Silence becomes sacred not because it's peaceful, but because it's productive. The mind recalibrates only in stillness. The rare few who protect attention develop mental sharpness that feels supernatural to the overstimulated. They think clearly when others panic. They see patterns where others see chaos. The difference is not intelligence, it's bandwidth management. The modern mind wastes half of its processing power filtering noise before it even starts thinking. Those who limit distraction effectively double their available capacity. They can hold more complexity, process faster, and decide better. Guarding attention gives you cognitive leverage over a distracted world. It turns focus into a weapon. In a society addicted to scatter, clarity becomes dominance. Distraction feels like freedom, but it's manipulation in disguise. Every platform, every advertisement, every screen is engineered to capture your cognitive energy and redirect it. You are not browsing freely. You are being harvested. Guarding your bandwidth means reclaiming your mental sovereignty. It means choosing deliberate attention over involuntary reaction. It's a slow unlearning of digital dependency. The more you disconnect, the more your mind begins to repair itself. Thoughts slow down. Memory sharpens. Awareness deepens. That recovery feels foreign at first, like detox. But once your attention returns to full capacity, you realize how much you've been living half-conscious. The world looks different when you stop seeing it through the fog of distraction. Every thought you entertain carries a cost. The brain processes roughly 56 bits per second, spend it on noise, and nothing remains for depth. Attention behaves like light, it can illuminate or scatter. Most people scatter it across trivialities, leaving nothing bright enough to guide them. But when you narrow that light, when you concentrate those bits into a single pursuit, you ignite focus. Focus creates heat, and heat transforms. That's how progress happens, by directing limited bandwidth toward meaningful work instead of constant stimulation. Each day, you have a few hours of true clarity. Waste them, and you waste potential. Protect them, and you change reality. Guarding bandwidth is more than discipline. It's preservation of identity. The thoughts you allow shape who you become. Every input you accept rewires your internal code. You are not just consuming information, you are being sculpted by it. The content you scroll through, the people you listen to, the conversations you entertain, all of it redefines your mental landscape. Protecting attention is protecting selfhood. It's drawing a line between what belongs in your mind and what doesn't. Once you recognize the brain's limits, you stop letting strangers live rent-free inside your head. That's when originality returns. You do not need endless data. You need discernment. You do not need more time. You need fewer leaks. Guarding bandwidth forces you to choose carefully what deserves your mind. Every minute saved from distraction is a minute invested into focus, creation, or rest. Those who manage this balance rise effortlessly above the chaos. Their decisions cut sharper. Their thoughts carry weight. They live deliberate lives because their attention belongs fully to them. Attention has always been the true measure of power, not status, not wealth. Whoever controls their focus controls their destiny. Growth does not move in straight lines. It bends, it hesitates, it tests your endurance before it rewards your consistency. The S-curve is the hidden law behind every transformation. At first, progress feels invisible, a flat line where nothing seems to change no matter how hard you try. It's a psychological desert where the impatient die. But that flat line is not failure, it's foundation. It's where unseen structure is forming beneath the surface. Every repetition, every disciplined act, every quiet effort builds pressure. Then, when momentum finally strikes, the curve steepens. Everything accelerates. What once took months takes days. What once felt impossible becomes routine. But to reach that acceleration, you must survive the flat line, the long, silent stretch where nothing validates your effort except your own conviction. That's where most give up. That's why few ever reach the steep climb that follows. The early stage of growth feels like punishment. You show up every day, and the world stays silent. No recognition, no feedback, no visible reward. The mind starts whispering that maybe this effort means nothing. That is the illusion of the S-curve. Every seed germinates in darkness. It breaks before it blooms. The roots grow invisible first because nature prioritizes stability over speed. So does greatness. The quiet hours where you feel like you're making no progress are the very moments your foundation is forming. The curve is building tension, storing potential energy. The longer you stay there, the more violent the rise will be when the time comes. But you cannot time it. You can only trust it. Patience is the currency of the flat line. Most people spend theirs too early. They expect exponential results from linear effort and abandon the process when reality doesn't obey their timeline. The truth is that growth compounds invisibly long before it compounds visibly. Every repetition rewires a neuron. Every habit strengthens a pattern. Every failure refines precision. You are advancing even when it looks like you are stuck. The plateau is deceptive. It conceals evolution beneath monotony. That is why mastery feels like stagnation before it feels like momentum. If you can stay steady through the stretch of nothingness, you'll experience acceleration others will mistake for talent. The steep phase of the curve is both gift and test. It's when everything starts clicking. The body adapts, the mind sharpens, the results compound. People suddenly call you lucky or gifted, unaware of the years you spent invisible on the flat line. The steep rise is never magic, it's accumulated time breaking through inertia. Momentum feels supernatural only to those who didn't endure its origin. The danger is believing the steepness will last forever. It won't. Every S-curve ends in a plateau. Growth accelerates only to stabilize again. That cycle repeats because progress must consolidate before it multiplies. Those who panic at the plateau crash. Those who adapt reset and start another curve. Those are the ones who build legacies. The plateau tests humility. It arrives after success when comfort tempts you to coast. The same silence returns, but this time it's deceptive because it comes after applause. Many people lose momentum not because they fail, but because they fall in love with the feeling of progress instead of the discipline that created it. The plateau demands reinvention. You must start again as if you know nothing. That is where mastery separates from mediocrity. The plateau is not punishment. It's the invitation to evolve. The same way the flat line built resilience at the start, the plateau builds maturity at the end. The S-curve also applies to every human relationship, skill, or habit. At first, the connection feels stagnant, uncertain, fragile. Then, if you nurture it, depth appears suddenly like light breaking through a cave. After that comes stabilization, the comfort that tests gratitude. Everything that lasts follows this rhythm. Flat, steep plateau. It's a law of rhythm.